The wind carried a bite that morning, the kind that curled through bone and memory. A light asterisk smoke drifted from a crooked chimney, winding into the ash-gray sky. The forest beyond the clearing stood naked, trees stripped by a long, cruel autumn. Cold hadn't yet broken into snow, but the frost whispered it was near. Jack Callan split wood with the kind of quiet only a grieving man knew, not rage. Not purpose, just movement, axe, crack, breath. Again, his hands were calloused but careful, like he was scared of breaking something already splintered. A single crow wheeled overhead. Not even it dared caw. Inside the cabin, a boy hummed softly. 8 years old, thin frame. One leg braced with a carved stick wrapped in worn leather. He folded a napkin like it was a flag, delicate, purposeful, as if the world would make sense. If just this one thing stayed neat. Jack paused, looked up, there. Between the bare trunks, half-shaded by mist movement, 6 shadows, riders, he stepped slowly to the porch, rifle leaning against the weather-warped post. The riders didn't charge, didn't shout, just rode in quiet like ghosts unsure if they were still allowed to walk the world. Their horses were weary, ribs showing. Coats half-matted in old blood and dried sweat, one limped. One was laid on foot, but it was the men that stopped Jack cold, 6 soldiers. Blue coats faded to a dusted gray, buttons missing. Torn flags stitched at the shoulder. One wore a slouched hat with a bullet hole through the brim. Another had his arm in a blood-crusted sling. All carried muskets. None raised them? They dismounted. Slow. Jack didn't move. His hand drifted to the rifle, but not out of panic, out of instinct. His boy was inside. The boy was all he had left. One soldier stepped forward. A black man, eyes hollowed from hunger and too many sleepless nights. His voice was cracked. Sir, may we? 3 words. That was all. But Jack saw the way the other stood, not proud. Not begging, just tired. The kind of tired that slept under every star and still couldn't shake the weight. Jack's voice was low. Who are you? Company D, 17th Infantry, the black soldier said, or what's left. Jack's jaw clenched. He knew the 17th, had ridden beside them before the war burned everything clean. Had bled with them in backwoods creeks and hilltop passes. He'd seen good men die in that company. One of them was Jesse, Sarah's brother, a boy with too much poetry in his soul and not enough caution in his heart. Another soldier stepped forward. A young kid, barely 20. His coat hung off him like a scarecrow's. He pulled off his cap. Beneath it, a jagged scar split from temple to jaw. We mean no harm, he rasped. Just need rest, shelter till the storm. Jack studied. Their faces, eyes downcast, shoulders sagged. Soldiers without orders. Storm's not here yet, Jack said flatly. The black soldier nodded. No, sir. But it's coming. Jack glanced toward the cabin door, inside. The boy had stopped humming. He let them stay, but not without locking every door once they were in. Not without counting the number of weapons, the number of boots. Not without keeping the rifle close. That night, the wind howled louder. They sat around the fireplace, a quiet circle of flickering light and too many shadows. The soldiers took off their coats, revealing worn undershirts, bandaged ribs, and in one case, the puckered remains of a bayonet wound. They didn't ask for food, but Jack gave them broth anyway, thin, hot, enough to keep death back another day. Eli sat curled beside his father, watching the men with wide eyes. One of them, a tall, pale figure with hair like straw, nodded. At the boy, he yours? He asked gently. Jack nodded once. The man smiled, barely. Looks like his mother. Silence. The fire popped. Jack stared at him. You knew Sarah? The man looked down. No, sir, just a guess. But Jack didn't believe him. Not fully. By the second day, the frost had turned to ice. Trees crackled in the wind like old bones. Jack rationed food, dried beans, strips of venison, jars of preserves. He set rules, no one near the boy, no one outside without him. Knowing, but war-bent men had their own gravity? You couldn't cage ghosts. One night, Jack found the kid with the scar in the barn cradling a pistol, talking to it. Apologizing to it, I thought the fire would be over quick, the boy whispered, not realizing Jack stood in the doorway. But the train kept burning, Jack didn't ask. He just stepped away and left the barn door open, as if that might let some of the guilt out. On the fourth day, the storm announced itself with thunder that came from no sky. Not lightning, hooves, far off, distant, but steady. Jack stood at the edge of the clearing, watching the trees. The soldiers lined up beside him, rifles half-shouldered, unsure if they still remembered how to aim. Could be just riders, said one. Jack shook his head. Not in this cold. He turned and looked at the 6 of them. Everyone carried something broken. One dragged his leg like it belonged to someone else. Another stared too long at the horizon like he hoped death would just take him quietly. You got enemies? Jack asked. The black soldier nodded. We all do. Some wear badges, some wear ghosts. Jack walked back inside. He pulled a drawer from under the hearth. Took out an old, worn envelope, inside. A photo. 3 people, Sarah in the center. Sunlight in her eyes. Jesse on the left, grinning, arm around his sister. Jack on the right, uniform still clean back then. His hand rested lightly on Sarah's back, like he was afraid she might vanish if he held too tight. He stared at the image, then at the fire, then back at the 6 soldiers sitting in his home. That evening the wind went quiet, the kind of stillness that only comes before something terrible. The men sat in silence. No stories, no toasts, just spoons scraping against bowls. Boots drying near the fire. Jack's boy Eli played with carved animals, a deer, a wolf, a bird. He placed them carefully in a circle, then knocked the deer over. Why'd he fall? One soldier asked softly. Eli shrugged. He was too proud. That night, Jack couldn't sleep. He walked the edges of the cabin, rifle across his back, breath fogging in the cold. His footprints joined those of the 6 strangers, men he once might have called brothers, men who now looked like husks wearing uniforms. He stood by the woodshed and lit a cigarette. Only once a week. Only when the dead felt close, from behind. Him, a voice, he died saving children. Jack turned. The black soldier stood there, arms folded. Eyes wet. Jesse, your brother-in-law, he stayed behind when we ran. We thought he'd follow. But he didn't. Jack said nothing. Just stared. The soldier took out a pendant, a small metal tag. Jesse's name etched into it. He told me if we made it out, to find you, to tell you. Jack's voice cracked like the frost. Tell me what? That he forgave you. For not being there. Jack turned away. The wind picked up, and in the distance. Beneath the moon's pale gaze, the sound of hooves drew nearer. Not 6 this time, more. By morning, the world had turned to glass. Trees bent under the weight of ice, their branches crackling with every whisper of wind. The clearing, once just frostbitten, now wore a glaze of white. Breath hung in the air like smoke, and every step crunched like broken bone. Inside the cabin, it was quiet. Too quiet. Jack sat at the table with a map spread in front of him, not of roads, but of memories. Places he'd scouted before the war, ravines, old cabins, trails only deer knew now. He traced them with one finger, slow, as if searching for something he couldn't name. Behind him, the 6 soldiers slept, or pretended to. Only Eli stirred. He sat on the floor, drawing shapes in the soot near the hearth. He didn't speak. Not since the rider tracks had circled the cabin in the night. Not since Jack had quietly slid a revolver under his son's pillow. At noon, the fever took one of them. A red-haired man named Booth, quiet, pale, with a shiver that shook him like a dog in a storm. He collapsed in the corner, sweat slick on his brow despite the cold. The others tried wrapping him in blankets, muttering old wives' cures. Nothing worked. Jack poured snow into a pan and melted it by the fire. He won't last the night. No one argued. Then came the knock. Asterisk, not a bang, not fists, just 3 soft raps. Asterisk, Jack grabbed the rifle and moved to the door. The others tensed, hands on triggers, eyes wide. But when he opened it, it wasn't bounty hunters. It was her, a woman in a fur-lined cloak, a rifle slung over one shoulder and a bag in the other. Skin copper-toned, eyes dark and unreadable. Her hair was braided back tight, frost clinging to the strands. A long scar cut across her collarbone, vanishing under her layers. She stepped in like she'd been there before. Like the walls still remembered her scent. Asterisk, Jack stared. Nara? Asterisk, she didn't answer. Just knelt beside the fevered man and pressed a hand to his chest. Asterisk, he's burning from the inside, she said simply. Pneumonia. Asterisk, can you help him? One soldier asked. Asterisk, she opened her bag and laid out roots. Strips of bark, a tin of powder that smelled like smoke and honey. I can try. Asterisk, no one questioned her. They just moved back and watched her work like she was some half-ghost come down from the mountain. Asterisk, Eli stepped closer, eyes wide. Who is she? Asterisk, Jack's voice was low. She knew your mother. The hours passed heavy. Asterisk, Nara moved like a shadow, mixing, stirring, pressing rags to the sick man's forehead. She never looked at Jack, never asked questions. But when she reached for water, her fingers brushed his. Both froze, and in that split second, more was spoken than in 10 years. Asterisk, because before Sarah died, before the war, before Jack buried half his soul, there had been a fire once. Not the kind that burned houses, the kind that lives in glances and shared silences. Nara had carried it, so had he. But Sarah was the one he married, asterisk, and the rest? The rest stayed buried, outside. The snow finally came, asterisk, thick, fat flakes falling in silence, burying boot prints. Smothering sound, but even snow couldn't erase what came next. That evening, Jack found something tucked in the lining of one soldier's pack, a crumpled piece of paper, stained, torn, asterisk. He opened it carefully, a letter, short, scribbled. If you find him, tell him. I stayed, I didn't run, not that time. I couldn't, not with them screaming. She was holding a doll. I had to. Jesse. Jack's hands shook, his breath hitched in his throat. He didn't hear the footsteps behind him, asterisk. You weren't supposed to see that, asterisk. It was the scarred soldier. The one who never blinked, asterisk. Jack turned slowly. This true? Asterisk. The man nodded. Your brother-in-law saved 12 kids that day, dragged them from the wreckage while we stood outside waiting for orders that never came. Asterisk. Jack swallowed. You left him. Asterisk. The man didn't flinch. We did, asterisk. Jack's voice turned low, rough. And now you think sitting by my fire makes it right? Asterisk. The man's lip trembled. No, I think he'd want you to know. That night the fever broke. Asterisk. Booth opened his eyes, shivering but alive. Nara sat beside him, wiping his brow. When he tried to speak, she laid a hand gently on his chest. Asterisk. Rest, she whispered. You don't need to speak yet. Not after what you've carried. The others watched in silence, the kind of silence men share only after blood and fire. Days passed. Asterisk. The storm lingered. Jack hunted in the woods, traps and bow in hand. He brought back rabbit, once a deer. The soldiers chopped wood, cleaned, helped with Eli. One of them carved a new brace for his leg. Sturdy, polished, better than Jack had ever managed, asterisk, slowly. The line between stranger and something else began to blur, asterisk, but peace never lasts. On old ground, the fire was low when Nara said it. Asterisk, there are men coming. Jack looked up. How do you know? Asterisk, she nodded toward the wind. Tracks, 6 riders. Uniforms, but wrong colors. Not Union, not Confederate, asterisk. Jack's eyes narrowed. Bounty? Asterisk. She stood slowly. Gold does strange things to men. Especially when it's stolen. Silence fell over the room like a veil. The soldiers stood, asterisk. They've been hunting. U.S., one said. Ever since the train raid. They don't care that we didn't take the gold. They just need a body count. Asterisk Eli looked up from his corner. Will they find us? No one answered. That night, Jack pulled Nara aside. They stood in the snow, breath clouding between them. I thought you were gone for good, he said. She didn't look at him. I was... Asterisk, why come back? Asterisk, her eyes finally met his. Because I owed Sarah, and because I knew you'd still try to carry it alone. Jack exhaled. I never meant to choose wrong, he said. Asterisk, you didn't, she replied. You just chose with love, so did I. Asterisk, he stepped closer, unsure. Scared, wanting something he couldn't name, but she stepped back. Not now, she said. Not while ghosts still walk. And the next morning, Eli found something buried in the snow. Asterisk, a drawing. Charcoal on parchment, wet but still legible. Asterisk, 6 men. 1 train, a fire in the background. And a child, small, arms outstretched. Asterisk, at the bottom. A name, Jesse. Eli showed it to his father. Jack took it with trembling hands. His past wasn't just returning, it had never left. Asterisk, by sundown. The horizon burned orange with firelight, not from the sky, from torches. Asterisk, 6 riders approached, hard, fast, organized, not soldiers, not saviors. Asterisk, men with black coats, red scarves, and eyes. Like ice, the storm had passed, but the reckoning had only begun. The fire in the horizon wasn't from warmth. It was from hell riding. Asterisk, Jack stood at the porch with his rifle slung low and his son behind the door. The riders came slow now, deliberate. Their torches swayed like lanterns held by the damned. 6 men, thick coats, faces smudged in soot and cruelty. The snow around them hissed from heat. One of the soldiers whispered, They found us. Asterisk, Jack didn't answer. He just stared. Asterisk, because he recognized one of the men, tall, scarred down one cheek. A brand on his neck, a ring of iron, not military, not law. Just fire and greed given shape. His name was Wade Darren, once a sergeant, then a deserter. Now a bounty man who didn't care if you were guilty, only if your body was still warm. When he dragged it in, Asterisk, Wade halted 20 yards from the cabin, his voice rough and casual. Asterisk, you got some ghosts in there, Callan. Men with warrants. Some say they stole Union gold. Others say they burned a town down. Jack stood still. Wade took a step forward. Now you're a decent man, with a boy. You got no reason to get mixed up. Hand him over, and we'll leave you your fire. Maybe even your roof. Inside, one of the soldiers gripped his rifle tight. The black soldier, the one who first asked, May we? Stood. Asterisk, I'll go, he said quietly. No more blood. Asterisk, Jack turned fast. You moved toward that door, I put you down. Myself. The man froze. Jack opened the door and stepped outside. Asterisk, snow crunched. Heat from the torches bled into the cold. He walked slow, calm. Wade raised his brow. Didn't think you'd come out like that. Jack said nothing. He walked right up to him, only a few paces between them now. Asterisk, then he said, quiet as winter. Asterisk, those men inside, they're not saints, but they're not yours. Asterisk, Wade chuckled, they're not yours either. Asterisk, Jack met his eyes. They are now. Silence. Then Wade moved fast, reached for his revolver. Asterisk, but Jack had already turned, dropped, and fired. 1 shot. Wade's leg jerked. He howled, fell sideways. Then the woods exploded. Gunfire, screams, hooves. Asterisk, the bounty men fired into the cabin, wood shattering, glass blowing inward. But the soldiers inside were ready. One took a shot through the window. Another burst out the back door, drawing fire away. Asterisk, Jack moved like he was still in uniform, rifle to shoulder, breath slow. He dropped another rider with a clean shot. To the chest, Asterisk, the scarred soldier, the one who had spoken little and slept with his pistol, charged into the storm, shooting from the hip. A bullet clipped his arm, but he kept going, tackled a rider from his horse and fought in the snow. Asterisk, blood bloomed. White turned red. The boy Eli hid under the floorboards, hands over his ears. Inside, Nara reloaded calmly. Her face was steel. She aimed through a crack in the wall and dropped the 4th rider before he reached the porch, but one made it inside, a bounty hunter, eyes wild. Blade in hand, grabbed at Eli. The child screamed. Jack heard it. His blood froze, asterisk, then he was inside, fast, brutal. A ghost of war. He didn't shoot. He grabbed the man, slammed him against the wall. They grappled. The knife cut across Jack's side. He grunted but didn't fall. He pulled the man's arm back until something snapped, then shoved him out the door and fired once into the snow. Silence. It ended as quickly as it had begun. The last rider turned to flee. But the black soldier, the first one who had spoken, stepped out from behind the cabin, rifle leveled. He didn't yell. He didn't curse. He just pulled the trigger. The man fell. Afterward, the snow drifted quiet again. Smoke hung low. Wade groaned from the ground. Leg bleeding, Jack stood over him, gun still in hand. "You think this buys you redemption?" Wade spat. "They still burned that train, still ran like dogs." Jack stared down at him. "Maybe, but some men run toward fire, not away." "He didn't kill Wade, he just walked away. The morning was bitter. They buried 2 of the soldiers. Behind the cabin, no names on wood, just stones. A deer watched from the edge of the trees. UNMOVING. The scarred soldier lit a small fire beside the graves and placed Jesse's dog tag between them. Jack said nothing. He simply nodded. Nora wrapped Jack's wound herself. Sat beside him afterward. In silence. "Still carrying too much," she whispered. He looked at her. "Maybe now it's time to set some of it down." She smiled, small and tired. "You always had a hard time letting go." "I'm letting go now," he said. He looked at Eli, alive, safe, older in the eyes now. "I've been walking in someone else's shadow," Jack said. "Maybe now I can walk beside it." The soldiers left at first light, not with glory, not with promises. Just nods. Quiet steps as they vanished into the mist. Jack stood on the porch, Eli at his side. Nora stayed, because sometimes forgiveness is a place, not a word. That night, Jack sat by the fire. He opened the old box again. Took out the photo, Sarah, Jesse, himself, but this time, he didn't cry. He smiled. Small, soft, real, he placed the photo back. Shut the lid and whispered into the flame. "I forgive you, Jesse, and I forgive me too." The wind picked up, but it wasn't cold anymore, not inside.